Okay, so I note that all councillors are present. Can I just confirm, have we begun the live stream? Great, thank you. Okay, so hello everyone. I have pleasure in opening the council meeting of the 9th of December 2025 at 6 p.m. and welcome all those in attendance. I would like to acknowledge it. We're meeting on the lands of the Whadjuk Noongar people and to pay my respects to elders past and present. Acknowledging as the City of Vincent, we have a role to play in working towards reconciliation and justice for First Nations people. I haven't received any apologies and everybody is here anyway. So I'm going to go straight to public question time. Can I just see whether there are any members of the public here who wish to address the meeting? If so, just show your hand. Excellent. Okay. So what you do when you just need to come forward, wait till we make sure the microphone's turned on first. Please give your name. Please give the suburb in which you reside, and if you are speaking to one of the items on the agenda tonight, please tell us which item it is, because what we will do is we will put that forward on the agenda and deal with those items first. You're limited to 3 minutes, and if you don't want to be live streamed, please tell us and we can actually stop that. But otherwise, a summary of your remarks will be included in the minutes, and any answers to any questions will also be available. So please come forward. Whoever, first in, first serve, whoever would like to address the meeting, please.
Good evening, Mayor Cole and councillors. Leslie Fleury, 79 Sass Ave, Mount Hawthorn. In regards to the 2 formal complaints lodged against the CEO, 10 detailed pages of complaints and alleged breaches. Question 1. Was the CEO Performance Review Panel notified of the 2 formal and serious complaints that I lodged? If not, why not? Was Price Consulting Group notified of the 2 serious formal complaints prior to or at the CEO Performance Review? If not, why not? Question 3, I wish to raise a matter in regards to the responsibilities and duty of care of the City of Vincent in relation to stormwater pipes and private property. Transparency, accountability and public disclosure. If a landowner has a City of Vincent stormwater pipe running through their property and the City is knowingly aware of its presence, but a land transaction such as a property sale occurs without the easement being recorded on the title due to a lack of transparency, non-disclosure and omission by the City, will the City accept responsibility and negligence and provide the landowner with compensation as per compensation under the Local Government Act? Question 4. How many residential vacant land properties, excluding the state housing, are there in the City of Vincent? Question 5. Is the GHD and contractors mapping now available on POSI? Layers for stormwater pipes are not accessible on the residential view of POSI. Thank you for your time.
Would anyone else like to address the meeting?
Good evening, Mayor, councillors. My name's Peter Herkenhoff. My wife Suzette and I are the owners and residents of 11A St Albans Avenue in Highgate. Thank you for consideration of all of our submissions to date with regards to the proposal detailed at item 9.2. I have just 2 further questions to put to council. First one, further to the responses to questions contained in the December 2 briefing minutes, has council received further planning department advice that warrants scrutiny by impacted stakeholders? So that's question 1. Question 2, in light of planning department misinformation and obfuscation revealed by stakeholder scrutiny of its recommendation and the knowledge that the standard you walk past is the standard that you accept, is council satisfied with the standard of departmental oversight? Those are my questions. Thank you for listening.
Does anyone else wish to address the meeting? You can just come forward.
Hi, good evening councillors, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Sonia Damiani from 11 St Albans Avenue, speaking on item 9.2. I just want to be clear that 11 St Albans is our home. It's not a commercial venture. We live here part of the year, and the only purpose of the short stay use is to keep the house cared for and secure when we are away, as well as to ease some of the financial burden. The short stay component is strictly part-time and secondary. It operates under far tighter rules than any ordinary residence would. A maximum of 4 guests, 9 p.m. quiet hours, no parties, no pets, no use of the rear drying court. Guests are screened. The property is professionally managed, and both a local caretaker and ourselves are available 24/7. In practice, the impact is lower than a standard long-term rental or even normal owner occupation. Every concern raised during consultation has been addressed. Guests cannot access residential parking permits, and there is no on-site parking. When we are away, we usually take both of our cars anyway with us, meaning that the parking impact is the same and often will be less. There were concerns about long-term housing integrity. This does not reflect our situation. Our home is not being removed from the long-term housing supply or converted into tourist accommodation. It remains our family residence, with short stays only occurring when we're away. Our children's drawings are on the walls and they're going to stay there. Their toys are in the cupboards. Our personal belongings remain throughout the house. It very clearly functions as a lived-in home. A concern was also raised about discrimination in our guest screening, and I just wanted to clarify this because that's not our intention. The screening is standard practice and exists solely to ensure guests are responsible and verified, exactly the same as a landlord checking rental history would. We screen purely against negative behaviour, which is to protect our home and to protect our street and neighbours. Finally, when we are away, our house would otherwise sit empty, which poses far more risk to neighbourhood security than a tightly managed, very part-time, low-impact stay. Our proposal keeps the home maintained, occupied, and a positive presence in the street that we love. We are also open to a 2-yearly review. As we have said, this is our home, and if the arrangement ever stops working for the community, then it stops working for us. We are already entitled to operate for 3 months without a permit. We are simply seeking an additional few months with a 2-year review. We respect that neighbour submissions must be heard, but many of the concerns were based on assumptions rather than the facts about how our proposal will actually operate. Our proposal is low impact and tightly managed. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Would anyone else like to address the meeting?
Good evening. My name's Kevin Canis. I'm president of the Castellorigian Association at 160 Anzac Road. We attended the meeting or the briefing last week where we tabled 3 documents. We'd also like to table a 4th document tonight that we've handed over. And the 4 documents ultimately challenge the assessment where, under the local heritage survey, the building or the property was listed as Category 2. The documents that we've presented submit that it should be Category 4. So the 4 documents we've tabled get down to justifying the following. The LHS focuses on the historical significance of the site, but references the building's architectural merit in justifying the site as Category 2. The Heritage Council's guidelines emphasise the importance of the historical value rather than any architectural merit in the assessment. In addition, the reports we have tabled demonstrate the building itself has minimal historic architectural value. Introducing the architectural merit is a distraction to the discussion because the building was seen in the report that was to Council was seen to be, and I quote, very important to the heritage of the locality, not necessarily for the architectural merit. The historical significance of the site, including association with Mr Beveridge and the Castellorigian Association, is already addressed and acknowledged in the signage shown in the photos we tabled last week. The signage could be used as a model to ensure the historical significance of the site is permanently recorded without putting an unnecessary burden of Category 2. As the building has minimal historical architectural value and the signage records the site's historical significance, we respectfully request the City of Vincent review the documents we have tabled and submit that 160 Anzac Road, Mount Hawthorn be listed on the Local Heritage Survey as Category 4. Thank you very much. And that was agenda item 9.4. I might have forgotten to say that.
Good evening. My name is John Canis. I'm also here for 160 Anzac Road, agenda item 9.4. The council briefing agenda dated the 6th of the 5th, 25 states 160 Road should be included on the Local Heritage Survey's Category 2. Under the tabled heading, Administration Comments, there are 3 statements there. Statement 1 on the briefing agenda. It has aesthetic value for the remaining form and detail of the Federation bungalow style. This statement is not true. Mount Hawthorn has many other examples that have not been altered into a commercial building. Statement number 2 on the briefing agenda. It is a landmark in the streetscape. It's one of the few homes of the style in the vicinity. This is not true either. It is not a home. It's been altered into a commercial building. It has commercial kitchens, commercial toilets, a hall. There are no bedrooms resembling a home. The City of Vincent itself classifies the building as a public commercial building under the rules. Statement number 3 states its historic value for the association, who has been providing services to migrants from the Castellarese Association and the wider Greek community. This is not true, otherwise we wouldn't be here today defending this. Category 2 Local Heritage Survey states any alterations or additions should reinforce the significance of the place. As explained last time in my report, how can this be classified? How can it say that the alterations or the extensions should reinforce the significance for any future work with over 90% of the original architect's design stripped and altered? It's definitely not a Category 2, and I'd like it to be Category 4 as well. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to address the meeting? Okay. So there being no further questions, I close public question time at 12 minutes past 6. Governance Manager, could you please confirm if any written statements were received?
Yes, through you, Mayor Zaman, we have received written statements from Peter and Suzette Herkenhoff of Highgate in relation to item 9.2. We've also received questions that do not relate to a matter on this evening's agenda from Lexi Smith of Perth and also from Ben Hodson of West Perth. All questions and statements have been circulated to council members, and those that are not addressed this evening will be included in the February council agenda.
Okay, I don't have any applications for leave of absence from any councillors. Does anyone wish to put in an application for leave of absence? Okay, so now we move to the receiving of petitions, deputations and presentations, and I have I have received a petition here from Lara Centre regarding pedestrian crossing on Brentham Street in Leederville. So Lara Centre of Leederville submitted a petition with 9 signatures. An additional 200 names were also provided in support. However, these were submitted outside of the formal petition process. The petition requests Council to implement safety control measures in relation to the pedestrian crossing on Brentham Street. So when there is a petition, clause 2.24 petitions in the City of Vincent Meeting Procedures Local Law provides the following options for Council on the receipt of a petition. Confining the presentation to the reading of the petition, which I've just done, and to the only motions that be considered are that the petition be received, or that the petition be received and a report be prepared, or that the petition be received and be referred to a committee for consideration and report, or that the petition be received and be dealt with by the council. And I would like to move that the petition be received and a report be prepared. Is there a seconder for that? Okay, seconded, Councillor Warner. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Okay, so a report will be put together and will be presented to a future council meeting. Okay, so now we move to the confirmation of minutes. And so the first proposal in front of us is that the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on 11th November 2025 be confirmed. Do we have a mover for that? Moved Councillor Wolfe, seconded by Councillor Greer. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. And we have a second proposal that the minutes of the special meeting held on 18th November 2025 be confirmed. Do we have a mover for that? So moved Councillor Wallace, seconded Councillor Warner. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Okay, so councillors, I've just got a few announcements I wanted to make. We're now dragging our way to the end of the year. Maybe I'm just reflecting how I'm feeling about things. It's been a very, very busy and tiring year, and the last month has been pretty relentless. I do want to say how much I enjoy this time of year in many ways. It's wonderful to be able to acknowledge the citizenships, the boards, and also the Spirit of Christmas awards at the many primary schools. And thank you to those councillors who just keep attending and who are assisting with that. That's wonderful. And we are really seeing that our town centres are absolutely heaving with activity at the moment. But it really has been a very high-performing year, and I think it's worth acknowledging some of the big-ticket items that we've managed to achieve. I think that probably the really big thing has been Place Scores finding us to be, City of Vincent, to be the most livable city in Western Australia, and the second most livable in all of Australia, which gives us something to strive for. Quite an achievement, and a pretty special acknowledgement, not least of which because effectively it's our residents that are making that determination in terms of how that's been found. Of course, we won recently WA Age Friendly Local Government of the Year, and congratulations to the team who's been doing so much good work in that space. The XREF Best Workplace Award and Change Champion Award, the National and State Disability and Inclusion Awards for Beatty Park, well done. An honourable mention in the National Awards for Local Government for our 40 kilometre an hour project, named a top 20 best practice entity by the Office of the Auditor General, and a top performing council in SNAP Solve Community Satisfaction Index 2025. These are big achievements, and we're doing really well. And I think it's important to be able to note that, because sometimes you only hear from people who might have concerns, but the reality is that we are doing exceptionally well in so many areas, and so much better than many other councillors, I will say. And we're doing this while we've also been able to deliver some really major projects. The Leederville Oval upgrades, that is now moving it towards becoming the AFLW home in WA. The redevelopment of Robertson Park and Lidders Stadium. The East Perth Power Station is finally been brought back to life, and we're about to see the second iteration of the Perth Festival there. It's going to be amazing, as well as hosting the Rugby Sevens. We have managed to get major federal and state government grant funds for a range of sporting infrastructure projects, and also the redevelopment of Dorrien Gardens into Little Italy. A huge accomplishment. The big thing, of course, we have finally commenced the delivery of the Vincent Underground Power Program, which is going to also play a key role in enabling us to plant out our tree canopy following immediately after these projects being done, which is of course ties in with responding to the polyphagous shot hole borer and carefully managing its impact on Hyde Park. And on that note, I want to say we've been undergoing trials in Hyde Park to address the borer for the last 18 months, and we've had some promising results from that. We're now looking to extend those treatments into Robertson Park and also into Beatty Park as well. So we're starting to get some some wins finally in relation to the issue of the borer, which is all the more important as we're moving away from an eradication approach. So I just wanted to say thank you to the team for all the hard work that you have put in. Thank you, as always, to the councillors for all the extensive hard work and passion for your community that you put in as well. Every councillor takes their job very seriously, and it is much appreciated by myself. And also, I know many of our residents as well who are feeling pretty happy with the way that things are happening within the community. So, thank you, everyone, for that. Declarations of interest. CEO, have you got any?
Through you, Mayor Zaman, declarations of interest are as follows. The first from Councillor Wallace, a financial interest in relation to item 9.4, which is the outcome of advertising adoption of the local heritage survey and amended heritage list. Councillor Wallace has a property on the heritage list. He is not seeking approval to participate in the debate, nor to remain in the chambers, nor vote on the matter. Councillor Poulos declared an impartiality interest in relation to item 10.1 on the Loftus Recreation Centre, noting that he plays indoor soccer and his son plays basketball at the facilities. Councillor Whedon declared an impartiality interest in relation to item 10.2, which is the Beatty Park toilet and store change room. The extent of the interest is that Councillor Whedon's daughter plays soccer with the Perth Soccer Club. And I'll note a declaration of interest in relation to item 17.2, which was a declaration of secondary employment, noting that I provided information for the report, but it was the advice was provided by the Manager of Governance.
Okay, so we have had items which have been subject to questions or comments or deputation. That's 9.2 and 9.4, and they're going to be the first items that we deal with on the agenda. We do have items which require an absolute majority decision. That's 10.2 and 12.2. And of course the financial interest has already been declared by Councillor Wallace in relation to 9.4. So in addition to that, noting that we also do have a number of amendments on the table to some items as well, and an alternate to one of them as well. Councillor Warner, do you have any items you wish to discuss tonight? Councillor Wallace? Councillor LaFontaine? Councillor Greer? Councillor Castle?
Thank you, Mayor. 11.3 and 12.3.
Okay, so 11.3 and 12.3. Councillor Whedon?
10.2.
10 point... Oh, that's already down because it requires an absolute majority. It's fine. Councillor Wolf?
10.1 and 13.1, please.
Okay, Councillor 10.1 and 13.1. Councillor Poulios?
10.1 and 10.2.
10 point... Okay, both of them are already there. And I'll just confirm, I have a feeling 12.2... Sorry, I'm just confirming, I'm confirming the one that I wanted to talk about. (17.1). Okay, so I'm just confirming that Councillor Castle hadn't also. Yeah, so
I meant to say that one as well. Thank you.
no worries. Thank you very much. So I'm going. So and I'll be pulling out 17.1 as well. Okay, so I'll just see which items we're going to be passing on block. Okay, Governance Manager, could you please read out the items that are proposed to be passed en bloc?
So through you, Mayor Simon, we have items 9.1, 9.3, 9.5, 11.1, 11.2, 12.1 and 17.2.
Okay, so the proposal is that those items be moved en bloc. All those, sorry, can I have a mover? Moved Councillor Castle. Can I have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Greer. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Okay, so now I'll move to the first item on the agenda, and that is 9.2, and that's 11 St Albans Avenue, Highgate, proposed change of use from group dwelling to group dwelling and holiday house. And I will draw to councillors' attention that we have an alternate recommendation that is in the grey in front of you as well in relation to this item. So, and that what that means for the new councillors is that if this item in its current form does not succeed, then we will be debating this one. Okay, so can I have a mover for this item? Moved Councillor Whedon. Can I have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Greer. Councillor Whedon, would you like to speak to the item? Councillor Greer, would you like to speak to the item?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Zaman. And I want to start out by acknowledging and thanking people for coming tonight and participating through the consultation process. In deliberating on this item tonight, it's very front of mind for me that Council has very recently consulted widely on the expectations around our short-term accommodation in the city. And we've got a draft but robustly debated short-term accommodation policy. For me, the proposal to approve a change to include a holiday house at this part of St Albans Avenue is out of step with the outcomes of that consultation. There are a few areas where this proposal is asking for our discretion, and in my view, it's asking for discretion on too many components. As such, has been discussed, I've got alternate, which is on the grey, but that is speaking primarily to the concerns around insufficient parking, and that this area is a residential area and it's not adjacent to any noisy activity. It's been very clear from our community that they want us to balance through our short-term accommodation policy the existence of these properties. They bring a great vibrance to parts of our community, but there's some parts where we've determined that actually it's not in step and we want to prioritise longer-term housing. I do appreciate that the applicant has shared that they're seeking to balance this holiday home with a personal dwelling. And I think it's important to be clear that, because there was different language used through the information we've received, that this isn't 6 months a holiday home and 6 months a personal dwelling. It is a holiday home, and in time where it's not being used as a holiday home may be used as a personal dwelling. The request for the number of nights with our 3-day minimum would enable this to be used as a holiday home for every weekend of the year and more. To me, that would enable the goal of earning some additional income. It does keep the property maintained, but I do think that these goals can be achieved without having to formally change this to a holiday home. Under our rules and the state government's exemption, declining this application tonight would still permit this place to operate as a short-term accommodation for less than 90 nights. To me, declining this application will say that 90 nights in our residential areas is sufficient. It enables the property to be well maintained, it allows it to be occupied while the owners are away, but it wouldn't formally change the land use to a holiday home. So as such, I'm not supportive of the officer's recommendation. I'm looking forward to hearing the views of other members of the council.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? Okay, Councillor Whedon, do you wish to say anything in conclusion?
I will say in conclusion, as someone who lives in an apartment building with lots of people who live remotely, having vacant houses nearby isn't always the best thing in the world, and certainly having people come through is, I think, a valid use while those people are not in it.
Okay, so I'm going to put the proposal. All those in favour? All those against? Okay, so that the voting against is Councillor Poulios, Councillor Wolfe, Councillor Greer, Councillor LaFontaine, Councillor Wallace, Councillor Warner and myself. We now have the alternate in front of us. Do I have a mover for this? Moved Councillor Greer. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Castle. Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a lot more to say. I think I've already said everything. This primarily speaks to as I've mentioned, it primarily goes to the role of the noise and the inadequate on-site parking arrangements. Thank you.
Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. I will speak in favour of this. Obviously, this is what we are dealing with now, and if this was lost, I don't know where we'd end up. Back in another alternate recommendation. I did vote in favour of the officer's recommendation because I was satisfied that the conditions imposed or proposed were sufficient to manage this property for the 181 days that were sought. But I do note Councillor Greer's comments that without the formal recognition of the use as a holiday home for that 6-month period, this property can still be used as a holiday home for 90 days without the need for formal approval by the city. So I'm happy with what is being proposed here. I think it's based on valid planning considerations, and I think it's certainly defensible if needed. But as we've talked about a lot, this is a very tricky situation. We have a relatively low impact proposal that was before us, but happy to support this alternate.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? Councillor Greer, do you wish to say anything in conclusion?
No, Mayor, thanks.
Okay, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. So we're moving on to 9.4, outcome of advertising and adoption of local heritage survey and amended heritage list. And because Councillor Wallace has declared a financial interest, he's just going to be leaving the room. Thank you very much. And I also want to draw to people's attention that there is also a proposed amendment to this item, which may or may not be moved, which is the orange piece of paper in front of you. Okay. All right. So the first thing is, do I have do I have a mover for 9.4? Mover. Okay. Moved Councillor LaFontaine. Do I have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Poulios. Councillor LaFontaine.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to support the officer recommendation here, but I do have a proposed amendment that I would discuss. Can I discuss it now? Okay. Oh, excellent. All right, so it is that in relation to stage 2 of the heritage review, that consultation would include letters sent to owners and occupiers of all places included in attachment 7, and signs on site or on the road, I guess whichever is permittable, being installed in each of the 7 category 4 places that are proposed to be removed from the heritage list. So my reasoning is...
So before you move on, because I just wanted you to introduce that, can I have a seconder for that amendment, please? Seconded Councillor Wolf. So back to you, Councillor LaFontaine.
Thank you, Mayor. So yes, my reasoning for the proposed amendment is that I understand that this goes beyond the minimum advertising requirements, but acknowledge that we only received 11 submissions by the community, and that signs would be a more accessible way to extend consultation to the community living around these 7 properties, given that category 4 places are recognised as having elements of value that are worth noting for the community. Thank you.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Mayor. I would be supportive of the item in general, plus the proposed amendment, subject to the proposed signs being of a reasonable cost, given that it's for a temporary duration.
Does anyone else wish to speak to the amendment which is in front of you? Because that's what we're speaking to. Okay, I'm going to put the amendment. Okay, all those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And so, Councillor LaFontaine, we're now discussing the amended motion because that's been accepted. Did you want to continue your remarks about the amended
No further
proposal?
comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, so now we have the amended proposal in front of us. Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to raise the questions from the gallery. Apologies if this was discussed last week. I'm just wondering if Council administration could comment on the proposal from the gallery that Castellarisian House should be Category 4 and not Category 2.
Through you, Mayor Zaman, when the city began this review, we engaged an external heritage consultant to assist us with identifying places that may have heritage significance that should be included. This was one of the places that was recognised, and it was recognised on some aesthetic value, but the significance really laid with the historic value and the social value that the place represented. So more so the story of the place rather than the physical building itself. And that was relevant to, in particular, the Castellarisian Association, which served the wider Greek community since the 1910s, and I think is the second oldest migrant community association in WA. So on the basis of the support services that it provided, that really tied to the recommended category of Category 2.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak on this item? Councillor Warner.
Thank you. Just another question based on tonight's comments. The association itself have said that they believe that the signage they have represents the history of the site and that is adequate. I was just wondering if you had any comments on that.
Through you, Mayor Zaman, perhaps that sort of ties to a comment from or a question from the gallery last week as well around the impact of being Category 2 and potentially heritage listed. When a property is heritage listed, redevelopment or additions can take place, but it just needs to respect the what that significance is. So when it comes to a cultural or a social significance, it's really about how that is interpreted. Plaques or things like that are one way, but so too is being able to support like new spaces, or I think shade sales was the example last year. So being able to keep that building in use is another way of recognising the social significance. So I suppose to the question about is the signage enough, perhaps, but I think the Category 2 would really recognise the full significance that represents to the community.
And I think I know the answer of what you're going to tell me, but is there anything to be gained here by splitting the difference and looking at a Category 3, which falls obviously between 2 and 4?
Through Mayor Zaman, that is some good math. I think the city's heritage consultant recognised it as a Category 2, and I suppose what administration has heard throughout the consultation period hasn't, I suppose, been enough to change that that view. It would be open to council to consider as a Category 3. I suppose the only difference would be when we get to stage 2 of the heritage review is that we wouldn't look to list Castellarisian House if that was the case, and instead we would consult with them on if they were interested in doing that. So I suppose we've heard what their views are, so in my view I think there would be limited value.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? I wish to ask some questions around this, and I want to get a better understanding of the practical limitations that are going to exist for the Castellaresian Association in being able to make amendments to the building when they are required. Could you please go through that so that I could have a better understanding of just exactly what we are imposing on the association in regards to the use of their own building? Because I know that they don't have any intention of knocking down the building or moving out of the building, so I would like to get a bit of an understanding of that, please.
To you, Ms. Amon, I think the first point is just to clarify that tonight isn't to heritage list the building. It is purely to capture it on the local heritage survey, which is the record of the significance, and then stage 2 would consider the next part. Inclusion on the local heritage survey doesn't carry any additional burden in terms of how development or additions could take place. It's a heritage listing which potentially comes next, which would require development approval for works to the building. So if you're trying to knock it down, that would require approval. But equally, if you were doing additions or making changes to the building, that would also require a DA. What that would mean for the association is, following on from what my earlier response is, any of those works are still absolutely capable of being approved, but they just need to demonstrate and respect that, I suppose, social and cultural significance. So it would be different to if it was a intact and aesthetically significant building, which would be a bit harder to manoeuvre in terms of what you could and couldn't do to the building. But in terms of this one, we've also spoken with our heritage consultant, and their views were that development wouldn't be precluded if it were to be heritage listed. It would just need to consider how that story is acknowledged and celebrated. So to go back to the original question of what's the practical difference, if they were to be listed as part of stage 2, they would just require a DA for works, but they are capable of being absolutely considered and approved.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? Okay, Councillor LaFontaine, would you like to say anything in conclusion? Okay, I'm going to put the amended proposal. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Would you mind, Governance Manager, bringing back Councillor Wallace? Okay, so Councillor Wallace has joined us. So now we move on to item 10.1, which is the Loftus Recreation Centre review of annual lease payments to Belgravia Health and Leisure Group. And I'm going to draw Councillor's attention to the fact that there are 2 amendments pertaining to this particular item. That's on the green and on the light blue. Okay. So do I have a mover for tonight? So moved Councillor Wolf, seconded Councillor Castle. Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you to administration. I certainly appreciate all the engagement that's taken place between admin and Belgravia over recent years to ensure continuity of service at Loftus Rec. And I also want to recognise and acknowledge the early improvements that we're seeing in performance under new management. That said, I'm not supportive of the officer recommendation as written. Belgravia is a large national corporation. From what I can see, happy to be corrected, but from what I could see online, Belgravia Leisure is based in Melbourne and it operates over 200 leisure and community facilities across Australia and New Zealand. It's part of a broader group of companies that also spans disability services, tourism and wellness. And on its own website, it describes itself as one of the largest privately owned family businesses in Australasia. And we've now been supporting Belgravia at Loftus Rec for years, and I'm just not convinced personally that the promises of positive changes in the future is justification enough for a further 50% rent reduction. I'm finding it hard in my own mind and absolutely understand the complexity of budgeting and different operational departments for budgeting, but I'm finding it hard in my own mind that other projects like trying to progress a shade sail at a children's playground in North Perth can't be progressed because of funding implications, yet we're still here trying to put thousands of dollars towards propping up Belgravia as a large multinational corporation. Given the ongoing financial challenges to me, the logical next step here would have been to consider other options, like was raised at the briefing, having a look into termination of the lease early by mutual agreement. But I understand from the information that was given at the briefing that the operational reality doesn't support this as a desired outcome. So taking on that advice, I personally would be open to a refusal, or to consider many of the other options that would be available for a sort of compromise position here, such as a lesser quantum or a lesser time period for rental reduction, as long as that is then combined with stricter governance arrangements and accountability. So I'll let others have a say on this, but just to note there are 2 amendments on the table, which be happy to discuss.
Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to say thank you to the Executive Director today for chatting about this item with me. I wondered if you could, as much as you're possibly able to say in open forum, outline what some of the benefits of this particular arrangement with Belgravia brings to both the city and to the community beyond the financial benefit of the lease payments.
Thank you, through the Chair. Currently, apart from outlays in respect to capital works to the facility, the city has no outlays in respect to the delivery of services at Belgravia. The current arrangement is delivering services in respect to the court hire, indoor court hire services to the community. There are other value adds in respect to that, in respect to gymnasium, Pilates and others, which we wouldn't normally be able to fit in the tight space that we currently have at Beatty Park Leisure, because it's, as we know, it's probably about at its max in respect to its service delivery, although our manager will constantly try to squeeze extra out of it. So it is delivering services. Should there be no service provider there, the city would need to escalate its service delivery to step into at least managing the centre and managing that court hire arrangements that occur there, including all the other costs that would be in that space. The city hasn't done a study in respect to what that might cost. That's part of the work that we're doing in respect to having a baseline for the tender renewal when it comes up, so we understand what it would cost for the city to take over the operations as compared to any other arrangements that might come into place, whether it be a lease or a management arrangement or some other form of outcome.
Thank you. And I also understand from the report that part of the arrangement with Belgravia is repayment of the loan, which funded the redevelopment of the centre. What would be the status of that loan if the lease was terminated?
Just been handed to me through the Chair. 419,976 is left outstanding. So.
And would that be the city's liability?
I would need to understand the lease agreement and the financial arrangement, whether we would continue to pursue Belgravia in payment of that, or whether, yes, I'd need to get some advice.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that advice, and I think that this arrangement with Belgravia is probably more complex than a simple lease agreement, there's certainly some benefit to the community and also some financial benefit to the city in maintaining them as a partner in the location. Having said that, I've certainly sat in a number of council meetings where we have approved financial support and waiver of rent and other relief to Belgravia over a long period of time, and that certainly gives me a lot of concern about the sustainability of the business. I agree with Councillor Wolf, it is not the city's role to continually prop up a commercial enterprise operating in city land, but I do acknowledge that this is not something that we could potentially extract ourselves from quickly or easily without some other detriment to the city, not least financially. So I do accept that there's probably a need for some relief at this point. However, I'm not very comfortable with accepting that for the future. And I think we need to send an extremely clear message to Belgravia that this is the end of the line, and that things need to change for this to be a business that can be supported and maintained in city-owned land. That it's for that reason that I requested an amendment be prepared to clause 1 to only, for council only to approve a reduction of rent for the 6 months in arrears to the 31st of December this year, and to review the situation in another 6 months, which may or may not result in any further rent reduction, but at least gives Belgravia time to perhaps turn things around as they might be doing, or and for the city to investigate what other options become available to us. I really like what Councillor Wolf has had prepared though as well, and so I think there's probably scope for a combined amendment there if Councillor Wolf is amenable to that, to perhaps reduce the reduction that's being proposed, but also set some milestones for what happens next in terms of checking in with Belgravia and what the city will do to check on their progress. So I'll allow others to speak if they'd like to before Councillor Wolf or I might move an amendment.
Okay, and can I suggest that if Councillor Castle and Councillor Wolf, you are looking at a combined amendment, you may want to quickly speak behind the chair to see if there is something that you want to be presenting to council. You have done that already. Good, thank you very much. Would it be, if you have something, it would be useful to present it to the rest of council. Okay, but before we move to that, does any other councillor wish to speak to this item? Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Mayor Zemon. I just had a quick question on this one. If we agree to a rent reduction, does that set a new baseline that rent's indexed against going forward? So are we kind of limited to a 3% increase on this new lower rent in a further review process?
Through the chair, I don't believe so. No, it stays on the normal rate. This is just purely for this period that the council decides on or doesn't decide on.
Okay, thank you. Otherwise, yeah, quite supportive of what's been said already in these amendments before us.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this? Councillor Paulios.
Yeah, I just understand the complexities of you know, you've got the gym, you've got the city, you're in between, you're trying to negotiate. For those that don't know, I ran and owned a gym for 10 years, 2009 to 2019, so I'm well aware of the struggles Belgravia has. But I won't be supporting the proposed 50% rent reduction for the following reasons. Commercial entity status. Belgravia is a commercial operator similar to other gyms within the City of Vincent. It's not the city's role to absorb the impact of inefficiencies in the management of a private business. Precedent and ratepayer expectations. A rent reduction of this nature is a short-term sugar hit and is unlikely to be well received by ratepayers. More importantly, it sets a precedent that could lead to other businesses and organisations to seek similar concessions, creating a long-term financial and governance challenges. Scale and capability. Belgravia is a large company with over 250 facilities nationwide. Like any business of this scale, not all sites will be profitable at all times. However, they have the expertise and resources to navigate downturns, given their extensive experience in the fitness industry. Past support. During COVID, the city demonstrated empathy and provided support, not just to Belgravia, but to many businesses. That was an extraordinary circumstance. Today, the situation is different and ongoing concessions are not sustainable. Business responsibility. As a business owner myself, I understand the challenges of operating in a competitive environment. However, I believe Belgravia should review its financials and explore innovative strategies to increase revenue and reduce expenses rather than relying on ratepayer-funded relief. For these reasons, I urge councillors to consider the broader implications and uphold a position that is fair, fiscally responsible and consistent with our duty to the community.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? I have a question. Can I just, at the briefing session, a rather innovative suggestion was put forward by Councillor Poulios that rather than looking at a rent reduction, perhaps monies could be redirected into looking at upgrades such as solar panels on the roof in order to be able to mitigate the cost of electricity for Belgravia as a tenant. Could you please give some feedback in relation to that suggestion?
Through you, Mayor Simon, yes, we provided some details in the briefing notes, but I can elaborate on that. To put solar power onto a facility such as Loftus Recreation Centre, there's a lot more work that needs to be done. It's not, we decided to do it and it happened in 3 to 6 months. There'd probably be a 12 to 18 month period where it would take to get that up and running in a facility such as that. We've got roof repairs that are underway at the moment out to tender at the Loftus Recreation Centre. There's also a number of services that have been added to that roof over the last 5 years since we did our last report on installing solar in that area. So we'd basically have to start again and look at that solar. So there's a lot of work to be done before we get to the point where a benefit would be available to Belgravia, and I don't think it would, by that time we'd have a pretty good picture of where we're going to go with that facility in the future, and it may not be to their benefit at all.
Can I please suggest that we'd look into those works now, though, because even if it's not going to benefit Belgravia, it could benefit a future tenant, or if we decide to manage it, it could benefit us. And I think that it is a very good suggestion, and one that I think is worth using the time we have to be looking into it, even if that is separated out from the issue of the proposed rental reduction, which is in front of us tonight.
Through you, Mayor Zidon, yes, the new sustainability team certainly has that on their radar, and then it's just a resourcing issue for the city buildings team to work with the sustainability team as part of our ongoing sustainability strategies and part of Council's budget preparation next year to make sure we allocate enough funds to allow, and resources to allow the city to enact that sort of investment in those areas and for the future.
Superb. Perhaps a good look at some wind turbines as well. Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? Okay, so I'm going to actually refer back to either Councillor Wolf or Councillor Castle, who have indicated they have amendments in front of us. Can I get an indication? So I'm going to, so Councillor Castle, you wish to move your amendment, do you? Which is in front of us on the green piece of paper.
Yeah, we're going to combine them and say khaki. What I'm proposing, but I will check with Councillor Wolf that we have the same understanding, is a amendment to clause 1.1. In line with the dark green, which is to change the date from 30 June 2026 to 31 December 2025, 6 months, in the amount of $48,436.56. Forget I said that. And then to proceed with clauses 3, 4 and 5 on the light blue that Councillor Wolf had prepared, and ignore 1.2 on the dark green. I'll just wait to check that everyone's understood that.
Before I seek a seconder, I'm just going to confirm. So looking at the combined, do people understand that we're moving with the amended 1.1 from the green? We are not proceeding with the proposed 1.2 on the green, but we are seeking to add points 3, 4 and 5 from Councillor Wolf's proposed amendment. Are people clear that that is what we are discussing? Okay. Do I have a seconder for that? Seconded, Councillor Wolf. Okay, so Councillor Castle, do you wish to say anything in relation to your proposed amendment?
Out of practice. Before I speak to it, can I just ask administration if they're okay with that combined Frankenstein, and does that cause any problems?
Through you, Mayor Zaman, no, it doesn't cause any problems. And we're happy with that.
Thank you. The reason I propose this is, as I mentioned when speaking to the item, I accept that there is probably some need for relief right this minute. There has already been discussions and negotiations with Belgravia about the current situation for them. However, I'm not supportive of approving that reduction for the next 6 months. And I think we need to have a very clear message to them about the milestones required to seek any further reduction. As Councillor Poulias has pointed out, there is limited council funds, and we need to be very careful about how we apply that, and only do that in situations where it's warranted, where there's community benefit, and where the alternative outcome is more detrimental to the city. That's probably what has swayed me in this particular situation. I think that December 2027 is coming up very, very quickly, and there's a lot of major work that needs to be done for the city to be in a better position to fully understand what our options are in relation to this lease, whether that is an early termination or a termination in December 2027, and whether that looks like the city taking over management of the facility or finding another tenant or another operator. We clearly need to understand better what that should look like. This 6 months at least gives both Belgravia time to prepare more information and to perhaps be in a better position, but also the city more time to investigate what some of those options might be. So on that basis, I would hope that council will support this amendment.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I absolutely do support this, and I'm glad we can still be friends. On the whole, I think the intent in preparing this amendment was to provide a bit more of a balanced approach between supporting the operations and the community benefit, and as we've heard tonight, the city benefit arising from the current situation, whilst also being a little bit more responsible with ratepayer funds and ensuring that strengthened accountability. The protection in this, I think, against risk is one, Belgravia is a large national corporation, but two, also that the amendment seeks a robust update to council fairly quickly by June 2026, and there's also a requirement then built in that council is informed of any significant or material risks that arise in that time, and I know that administration is engaged in monthly discussions with management there, so we do have that feedback loop. The amendment also aims to just send a pretty clear message here that future support is not implied by making this decision today, and it references the work that's gone on to consider options ahead of the lease expiry in December 2027, and we've heard tonight and last week that there's a very clear council interest in that work.
Does anyone else wish to speak on the amendment? Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Mayor Zaman, and thank you to Councillor Castle and Councillor Wolf for putting forward this amendment. I certainly appreciate it. Overall, I do agree that 50% is too much, and appreciate Councillor Castle's comments around how this is for the past 6 months and not looking forward, so I'm supportive of that. I'm in no way inclined to give a big corporation, such a big handout, but to me it's about investment in the services that our community use very regularly. There is a range of services currently offered by Belgravia that aren't available at such an affordable price for other residents in the community. So I do think I am choosing to see it as an investment in the community, but I very much support having a review and keeping council updated on where this goes. I do not want to be in a position where in December 2027, we're having the same conversation about the consequence of the loan repayments, particularly having that hang over our head if they're our preferred supplier because of this. I'd really like us to understand, as has been mentioned tonight, of what the consequences would be around the loan repayment and the timeline. But overall, I'd be supporting the amendments that have been proposed.
Does anyone else wish to speak to the amendments? Councillor Warner.
Thank you. Look, in general, I'm really not supportive of giving any concessions, but I do accept that the alternate outcome is quite detrimental. As Councillor Grid has mentioned, it's the provision of the services to residents, to our community, at a rate that they can afford. So I will be supportive of the amendment, and I thank Councillors Castle and Wolf for putting that together. And I certainly appreciate the accountability that's brought into focus with this.
Are there any further speakers on this amendment? Okay, so I'm going to put the amendment. All those in favour? Against? Okay, so note that Councillor Poulias voted against. We're now dealing with the substantive motion. So the substantive amended motion that is in front of us. Is there anyone who hasn't spoken on the substantive motion yet who wishes to speak? Okay, Councillor Wolf, do you wish to say anything in conclusion? Okay, so now I'm going to move the substantive amended motion. All those in favour? Against? Okay, so noting Councillor Poulias against. Okay, but that is carried. All right, so now we move on to the next item, which requires an absolute majority decision, and that is 10.2, Beatty Park Toilet and Store Change Room. And I draw councillors' attention to the fact that there is another amendment which is in front of you, which has been in relation to this item, which may be moved on the colour cream. Sorry, what is it? It's on the cream. Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure I get the ecru or something. Anyway, okay. So, do we have a mover for this item? Moved, Councillor Wallace. Do we have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Whedon. Councillor Wallace.
Cool. Thank you, Ms. Emon. So there has been an amendment circulated that contains a lot of my views on this. I'd say that there's a clear need for toilet and change room facilities at the reserve since we demolished the last one in 2020. I think the change in scope of the building since the May 2025 item to include a change room is a great idea. The marginal cost of that is well worth it for the teams that will be using the reserve. I can also appreciate the change in materiality of this design, moving away from the form that was used at Birdwood Square recently that's had a lot of maintenance issues to something slightly more hard-wearing. But I do think that we've still got a lot to, we have to do a lot better than this when we're installing infrastructure with a 50 or 100-year lifespan in a public place, particularly in a place that has such a history of good public infrastructure design. I think the design that we've been presented is very stark and bare bones. It lacks detail or any interest at all and does not in any way acknowledge the main Beatty Park buildings or the reserve around it. It's going to sit very high in the reserve to avoid flooding and in such a prominent position that it's going to be in line of sight from almost the entire reserve when you are looking back at the main Beatty Park buildings. So aside from the building itself, I do think we need to be doing a lot more work assessing the design of structures we're building in the public realm. There's so many hoops to jump through if you're a private citizen that wants to build a similarly priced structure on your lot. And I don't think we've held ourselves to that standard. I can appreciate that we did do some work with the DRP to develop a design scope, but I feel pretty strongly that we should be undertaking a review of the proposal against that scope and other relevant criteria prior to construction and prior to the item being presented to council. So I thank admin for their response to my amendment this afternoon. I think it contains a lot of discussion on budget and schedule, but not a lot of discussion about the design of it. And I'm of the strong view that it's not an appropriate basis to make a decision of this size and lasting impact on budget and schedule. We should have design somewhere near the top of that decision-making hierarchy. So I'm still of the view that the design is unacceptable and needs rework. very interested to hear others councillors' view on that one. I do take the point in admin's response to my amendment that, you know, appointing an architect at this point of time and doing a redesign doesn't sit with the Local Government Act in terms of procurement processes. So probably not super interested in moving the first part of my amendment on that basis. So I guess if there is views from the rest of council that this does need a redesign, I would probably be looking at a alternate that requests that. But yeah, failing that, I'm still quite keen on the second part of my amendment, which is intended to incorporate design development and review practices into our procurement policy. So I think, you know, in my mind, it'd be similar to a DA process that we develop a scope that goes out to tender and that gets reviewed against relevant design criteria. And I think it'd avoid putting us in such budget and schedule problems when these items do eventually come to council. So very keen to hear others' thoughts on that.
Okay, so I'm just confirming you're not moving the amendment right now. That's correct? Right, no worries. So, Councillor Whedon.
The redevelopment, well, construction of these toilets is important and urgent for our community. And particularly I look at the funds from Perth Soccer Club, which are a legacy of the Women's World Cup. And I think for me, that's the key factor here and the key factor of community. This site is justifying that funds as critical infrastructure for women to participate in sport. We currently have girls training in this facility with highly limited access to not just changing facilities, but toilet facilities for bathroom breaks and period management. If puberty becomes a barrier for access to sport, then the community is not being served. And I think if we're serious about encouraging these athletes to continue, we can't put extra barriers in place, and we need to continue this as quickly as possible so that we don't have season upon season dragging out without these facilities.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this matter? Councillor LaFontaine.
Thank you, Ms. Amon. I was supportive of the amendment at the May 2025 meeting for an architectural design. Now, however, in the high inflation environment, escalating construction costs, delaying of the decision by a redesign, I fear might increase costs and therefore reduce quality outcomes. In this instance, I'm supportive of selecting an option presented, acknowledging that this site has gone quite long without toilet facilities already. Thank you.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Mayor. I think most of us can agree on the genuine community need here. I agree that our previous delay was warranted, as that change room component was critical. But like others, I'm also conscious of the need to progress a design so that the toilets and change rooms are ready for use next season and without risk to the Perth Soccer Club contribution. I'm also conscious of the really high use we've got at the moment, which is fantastic, of that amazing playground right next to Beatty Park with that excellent flying fox. It's attracting a lot of attention, a lot of chat and a lot of usage. And from what I understand, we'll also be upgrading some of the exercise equipment in that vicinity, which is likely going to bring in more people. What I'm seeing personally through my own observation as a Beatty Park swim school mum, we've got lots of kids attending the playground after their swimming lessons, parents with multiple children who've undergone multiple lessons in the day, and it's a real juggle for them to say, can you look after one of my children because I've got to take the other one to the toilet at Beatty Park and come back. So just an example of the real critical need to move forward. And whilst that's certainly not a reason to accept any old design, I'm conscious of cost implications and our need to justify it to the ratepayers as well in terms of any further delays. Where I'm sitting at the moment is I don't love the proposed design in terms of its aesthetics and what it looks like, but I do note that it's functional and it can be improved through landscaping and future artwork as well to make it more aesthetically pleasing. Happy to have some discussions and considerations around how we work through design development into our procurement policy. And I think the other point that I wanted to raise, it's a small point, but something that did come up for me was around how we can seek a higher standard of imagery and plans through our RFQ process. I think it's certainly not ideal for administration or for council to be receiving some renders that look like they've been designed in Minecraft, or for plans that we can't actually read for decision making. So perhaps some thought to what wording we can put in there to elicit a better outcome for both administration and council could be considered.
Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Ms. Mon. I've got a few questions. The first one is, if this was approved tonight, when are we expecting the works to commence, and what does the project timeline look like?
Through the Chair, works would be expected to commence in February. They need to be completed by April for the winter soccer season.
So are we very confident that it would be ready for next season? Have we got that assurance?
Through the Chair, yes.
Excellent, thank you. In the briefing notes, we included what I think is called Buildings in Progress and Completed concept views of a range of different public bathrooms with a range of different aesthetics. I'm just wondering, if this was approved tonight, is there further opportunity to factor in those kind of creative and beautification elements? Because those toilets there are, include a bit more public art than what's currently on the proposal for ours.
Through the Chair, certainly we are looking to extend the existing 900 overhang for the shelter, pending obviously structural capacity, which will be able to be accommodated in the 10% contingency. And I believe we've already had a discussion with the Arts Committee, which was floated at last week's meeting, to look to see how we can improve or add some kind of artwork in consultation with the Arts Committee.
Thank you. That's great to hear about the overhang. Just on there's been mention of landscaping and the artwork, and it's great to hear it's been discussed at the Arts Committee. Is that currently within the budget envelope of the proposal? Is that a sure thing?
The additional shelter is, but not the artwork.
And have we got an estimation of what the artwork and landscaping might look like?
Through the Chair. Councillor, yes, we believe that the artwork is something in the vicinity of 20 to 30,000 if we were to engage a artist in its own right. That is one option. There are other options that we could do in terms of the exterior. We'll be exploring that as part of the additional money that we've requested. In terms of the landscaping, we will need to revisit that on the basis of the fact that we would like it to be an open landscape given its prominence and its social activities, but certainly, landscaping would need to soften that up and make it more open and pleasant. We are conscious of the playground next to it and the visibility that's associated with that.
Thank you. And I don't particularly like looking at moving amendments on the fly, but I am curious if administration would look at supporting an increase of up to $30,000 so that we've got some artwork. So we've got budget for some artwork for this so that it can be enjoyed by the community. And I think one of the pain points that I'm seeing for us is what it looks like, and there's great opportunity and great appetite to enact some of our arts goals. So I'm just, not to put people on the spot, but I'm just curious if there are any reflections on what that might look like.
Through the Chair, yes, we can look at that through mid-year budget review. It's a possibility.
Thank you. I'm just checking if I had any more questions. Last one. If this was delayed tonight, what would the impact on the grant timeline be?
The impact on the grant, Perth Soccer Club would have to take that because the department's got a time limit on that grant for them, so we would lose that. So that would be a portion that the city would have to fund.
Okay, great. So if this wasn't approved tonight, that 150,000 wouldn't be in 100,000 wouldn't be in consideration. Thank you.
Through the Chair, sorry. In addition to that, the city's reputation with the commitment with the Perth Soccer Club as well to be considered.
Excellent. Thank you. Certainly. Is there I've acknowledged through the mid-year budget review. Is it possible, Mayor, for me to propose an amendment now to add an additional 30,000 to the expenses to do that? Is that possible? I don't know if that's...
You can move an amendment, yeah.
Excellent, great.
But you would need to get a seconder for that.
Yeah, great. So I guess seeking to move an amendment to add $30,000 to the cost of support to go towards artists.
Do you want to develop some wording around that? So that we're
Can
not...
do and come back to me.
Yes,
Great,
would you?
thank
And if we can come back to you on that, if that's
Yeah,
okay?
no worries. Thanks.
Okay. Councillor Castle.
Thank you. I'll include some questions that might help you with that too. I am supportive of proceeding now. I think that's has been discussed by a number of people around the table. I absolutely acknowledge that design needs to be a critical factor in what we deliver in public spaces. And I think it is an important point to say that design should be high on the priority list. And I agree that what we're seeing in terms of renders is pretty substandard and not very inspiring. But I am also aware that we've already considered this once and deferred it, and that there is a real risk that this project will not be delivered at all or at significantly higher cost to the city if there's further delay. As I talked about when we discussed this in May, I don't feel comfortable spending the amount of money that we're talking about on architects and other design requirements for a toilet block, notwithstanding that it is in a very public place, in an important place. But I think that some of those outcomes can be addressed through the art and the landscaping that has been discussed, and I am supportive of us investigating that option. I do want to ask in relation to the money, is administration aware of any existing funds that could support the provision of landscaping and artwork, rather than tying that specifically or requiring council to request further funds at this point, given that we're already talking about an extra 119,000 to then add another 30,000 on that? I mean, that money might be spent either way, but if there's already an allocation where that could come from, I'd be interested to know that.
Through the chair, yes, there's certainly, we have asked for an extra 50,000 as contingency, so there is opportunity to work within that, pending site constraints. As long as we don't come across any unknowns, there is certainly capacity within the contingency.
So the 190 extra that's being sought includes 50 grand contingency?
That's correct.
And potentially, fingers crossed, that could accommodate landscaping and artwork within the current proposal?
Potentially, through the chair, potentially, depending on the extent of the artwork and the landscaping.
And look, I don't want to jinx anything because our track record with site works isn't fantastic. So, you know, let's hope that that's not, especially in Beatty Park Reserve. So I suppose I'm on the fence about raising that money at this point. I definitely would like to see that explored, but I think it would be perhaps more prudent to explore it within the current budget that's being requested. It's always open to administration to come back to council to request further funds, part of the mid-year review process or another item, if we discover other costs that blow that out. Would that be a course of action that would be easy to follow?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Zaman, I think given that these works will occur after the actual construction of the toilet, I think the mid-year budget review is a good time to do that. So.
Thank you. I suppose my last question in relation to artwork and landscaping is whether there's some value in a small amendment to make that clear that council would like to see artwork and landscaping included in the delivery of this particular building. I know everyone in this room is well aware of how council feels about those two things, and obviously we haven't voted on the item yet, so that remains to be seen how that progresses. But I personally might feel a bit more comfort if that is part of the decision of council.
Through the chair, yes, we could accommodate that.
That would also require some words on the fly. I'm going to check in with Councillor Greer and see how she's going.
Does anyone else wish to speak to the item? Councillor Poulios.
Yeah, I strongly support the administration's recommendation and urge us all to progress construction without delay. It's an essential improvement for the entire community, whether it's local families enjoying the reserve, casual users, or the Perth Azzurri women's team's training year-round. Access to toilets, a modest change room and a storeroom is a fundamental. Importantly, Perth will host the Asian Women's Cup tournament in just a few months. This is a significant opportunity to showcase our city and encourage greater participation in football, particularly among women and young players. Improved facilities will directly support this growth. Let's keep this simple. This is a straightforward community-focused project that delivers clear benefits. Delaying or overcomplicating it only disadvantages the people we serve. I encourage councillors to endorse this recommendation and move forward promptly. And then I guess in terms of, I'll say a few things about my views on the design. I think we need not a two-tiered approach, but if we're looking at simple structures like this one, getting architects involved just adds to the blowout in cost. Most architects like to work in percentage terms. So this is my experience as a builder. They like to, and this is not all of them, this is just a sort of generalisation that we've got to be cognizant that architects will try and inflate the value of a building because they can benefit through their percentage of fees. So yeah, if it's a worthwhile building, I'll support getting architects involved. But for smaller things like this, I think we just got to be mindful of keeping things, keeping the pencil sharp and keeping the budget, keeping things on budget. So yeah, that's how I think about these sort of things. So yeah.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? Councillor Warner.
Thank you. I believe we must proceed with the proposed Beatty Park Reserve toilet block and change rooms, and I want to be clear about why. The previous facilities were demolished in 2020, and under the current timeline they will not be replaced until at least April 2026. Expecting the community, particularly the many sporting clubs that rely on this district public open space, to go without basic amenities for 6 years is simply unreasonable. This reserve functions primarily as a sporting facility, and we have an obligation to provide the minimum essential infrastructure needed for it to operate safely and appropriately. That obligation has not been met, and it must be addressed urgently. Delaying the project any further will only make this matter worse. Our initial budget has already been stretched and construction costs continue to rise. Postponement also places the existing grant at risk, as we've well discussed. A redesign would probably increase building costs, and in other words, this delay does not save us money, it increases the financial burden on the community. I want to express my sincere regret that the original facilities were removed without a plan for a prompt replacement. I also share my disappointment regarding the demolition of the Beatty Park kiosk, which was an extraordinarily beautiful architectural piece. Despite these frustrations, though, my focus remains on serving the community needs of today, and this means ensuring that the Beatty Park Reserve finally has the functional, reliable amenities it requires. And while the proposed design may not be the architectural landmark it could have been, I believe that its visual impact can be significantly enhanced through thoughtful landscaping and public art. These improvements can elevate the facility's presence within the reserve and ensure it complements the character of the park. In short, moving ahead now is the responsible and necessary path. The community deserves basic facilities, and further delay only compounds both practical and financial problems. My commitment is to delivering a functional, accessible and respectful outcome for all of those who use the Beatty Park Reserve. And having said that, I would be very open to embedding some design developments and review checkpoints for future projects. But I really believe we need to pursue this ASAP. And from the meeting at the Arts Advisory Group last week, there were numerous discussions and suggestions made about the type of artwork, and the financial implications of that. Obviously, hiring a solo artist can come at one price. If we engage in a community project, that might come at a completely different price. So there's a bit of room to move on that.
Okay, Councillor Greer or Councillor Castle, do either of you have your amendments ready? Councillor Greer, you have an amendment for consideration. Do you want to read out the amendment first, and then I'll see if we can have a seconder?
Excellent, I will do. And I have just pressed go on an email to councillors and governance if you want to read along. But I really appreciate Councillor Castle's questions and contributions. So that the proposed wording is notes that Council's request for enhanced landscaping and public art at Beatty Park Reserve public toilet, and request that if this cannot be delivered within the current budget allocation, a proposal be brought to Council for consideration as part of the mid-year budget review.
Okay, and do we have a seconder for that? Seconded, Councillor Castle. Okay, so I just needed a seconder first. Councillor Greer, would you like to speak to the proposal?
Yes, please, Mayor Zaman. So I think the intent of this amendment is to really capture the conversation we've had as a council that in its current form it's not the most well-loved design, and there's certainly a deep appreciation for improvements in the inclusion of public art. I think this strikes a good balance. I appreciate the information that we have got the contingency already in place, and that there might be some scope for a range, cost up a range of different projects that fit within that. But if not, I would, this proposal would say that this needs to come forward to the mid-year budget review.
Before we move on, can I ask whether you'd accept a further amendment to your amendment, if that's okay, to also incorporate an extended, well, I think veranda is the word I'm looking for. What is the word I'm looking for? Because we've talked about it, you've said you can, but I'm wondering if that can be incorporated as an additional amendment.
Certainly.
So if that were the case. So I'm not moving
That's
the
right.
amendment.
So,
I'm proposing it for you to see whether it was something you'd be prepared to.
Notes the council's request for an extended veranda and enhanced landscaping and public art.
Thank you, Councillor Greer. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Councillor Castle, do you wish to speak to the amendment?
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, loving these collaborative amendments tonight. It's working well. Yeah, I'm supportive. I think it's really helpful for both council and administration to clearly articulate what the discussion has been and what, if this amendment passes, is what is important to council to be included in the project, and it gives us a touch point if we need further funds that can be considered at the time.
Okay, so certainly, so you wish to speak?
Sorry, Mayor Zaman, just for our Wendy minute taking, she wasn't able to capture the exact wording. If you could please repeat Councillor Castle or Councillor Greer.
Just to clarify, is the correct word veranda? Is that what the awning?
Eaves.
Eaves, awning?
Through the chair, can I suggest just the simple words, extend the skilling roof?
Brilliant.
I'll read it again.
Yes, thank you.
Notes the council's request for an extended skillion roof and for enhanced landscaping and public art at Beatty Park Reserve public toilet, and requests that if this cannot be delivered within the current budget allocation, a proposal be brought to council for consideration as part of the mid-year budget review.
Okay, I just want to confirm, has that wording been received? Yes, we've got it electronically. Veranda's very Australian, isn't it? Veranda. Extend the veranda. Just waiting to make sure that the wording is up on the screen so that everyone's clear about what it is that we're voting on. Okay, what I might do is actually say, does anyone, we know what the substance of what it is that we're talking about. Does anyone else wish to speak on the amendment? Councillor Wolf.
Just very briefly to say thank you very much to both Councillor Greer and Councillor Castle for the efforts, and Mesamon as well, in bringing that together. I think it really well captures the discussion that we've had, the preference that is explored within the operational budget. But what I like about it as well is that it allows for the contingency to actually be a contingency. So I think that's an important component, as well as capturing the aesthetic and functional preferences that we have.
Does anyone else wish to speak on the amendment? Okay, so I think we have got it in front of us now. Skillion, Skillion. Not C. And I just want to point out that I can actually read that from the other side of the room. Thank you very much. So I'm pretty happy. That's why I knew that there was a typo. So can I ask Councillor Greer, do you wish to say anything in conclusion?
No, thank you.
Okay, so now we just need to make sure we've got the exact wording in front of us so we know what we're voting on. Okay, so we've got that now. All right, so I'm going to put the amendment. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so then we go back to the substantive now amended substantive motion, and everyone here has now spoken on that. So I'm going to now go to you, Councillor Wallace.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Amon, and thanks to the other councillors for their well-considered remarks that I'd characterise as being wholeheartedly, resoundingly in favour of this item, so I won't move my amendment. But the second half of it I will also sit on as well. Like, I am very keen to see us implementing better practices around design development and review through our procurement processes, but I might work offline with strategy and development over the next couple of months before I bring something back. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, so I'm now going to move the amended proposal. All those in favour? Okay. All those against? Okay, that's Councillor Wallace voted against, but otherwise the motion is carried, and I look forward to getting the future proposal, Councillor Wallace, on that. So now I'll move on to the next item, which is 11.3, the investment report, as at the 31st of October 2025. Moved Councillor Castle, seconded by Councillor Wolf. Councillor Castle.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions about the policy that states that we should favour investments that don't support fossil fuels. I did a bit of a deep dive on this month, and I was interested to see that we've had a strong first quarter that's above the Reserve Bank rate, and I wondered if that's something that we often see, or is that just part of the normal fluctuations of how our investments perform?
Through you, Mesamon, are you referring to the 90-day bank bill rate we reference in the report? Comparison to that, so the 4.16 versus the 3.56, yeah. So we've historically used the 90-day bank bill rate. We have noticed that's dropped a fair bit, probably over the last year or so, and historically it was based on probably the average maturity of our investments, so having some funds on call and sort of longer term deposits, but perhaps we can have a look at if there's a better benchmark going forward to sort of have something that's closer to what we're actually achieving in terms of interest rates for our investments.
Thank you. And I thought maybe it could be useful to see something like a chart of how that percentage performance is over time, or something else that you suggest that could be useful to see whether we consistently perform above the Reserve Bank rate or another benchmark that might be useful, as you said. I also note that this policy is coming up for review next year, so I thought it was a good time to actually just mention a couple of things that I'd be interested in exploring. We've had this policy for a period of some years that I can't see in front of me right now, but it's a little while now, and it might be an opportunity to move to the next level of maturity in how we deal with that. And I thought there is almost certainly now some more opportunity to investigate further divestment from funds that support fossil fuels businesses. And so that's something that I just wondered if we could include as part of that review. I also wasn't sure if I fully understood the ratings that were being presented and whether I've got this right. So administration uses Yield Hub to determine the level of exposure to fossil fuel businesses. And then there's reference to 90% limit on financial institutions and the A2, A1 plus categories, etc. Do those ratings relate to the financial institutions, correct? I'm just wondering if in future reports we might have a bit more information about our spread between fossil fuels and non-fossil fuel investment portfolios, and just to get a better understanding of how we're actually performing against that goal in the investment policy and where our opportunities to improve that might be. So really, this is most of my comments are probably relate to that future policy review, but I just thought it might be a good opportunity to talk about that, and happy to talk about it more offline before we come around to that review in the future. Thank you.
Councillor Wolf, is there anything you wish to say? Does anyone else wish to speak on this item? Okay, I'm going to put the item. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so now we move to 12.2, which requires an absolute majority decision, and that's the Council Recess Period 2025-26 Delegated Authority to the CEO. Okay, so do we have a mover for this? Moved Councillor Pouliot, seconded Councillor Wolf. Councillor Pouliot, do you wish to speak to this item?
No.
So, Councillor Wolf, do you wish to speak to this item? Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? Okay, I'm going to put that. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously, and that is obviously an absolute majority as well. So then I move to 12.3, which is the information bulletin. Do we have a mover? Moved Councillor Castle, seconded by Councillor Pouliot. Councillor Castle?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be quick. I just wanted to add a note in relation to the section on notices of motion and the progress report, and the Mayor's notice of motion about protection and promotion of trees on private land. I have no doubt this is already on your radar, but I thought it was worth noting in that progress that there would be consideration of the recent decision in relation to Bassendean's fine that was upheld by the Magistrates Court, and what opportunities that might present for the city. That's all.
Right, anything else in relation to this? Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Pouliot? Okay, I'll put that. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Moving on. So 13.1, notice of motion. That has been put forward by Councillor Wolf in relation to safe trading sites. So Councillor Wolf, you wish to move that? Okay, do I have a seconder for this? Seconded Councillor Warner. Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to everybody for the opportunity to talk about safe trading sites tonight. As we know, people are routinely using online platforms like Facebook Marketplace to buy, sell, or exchange goods. Some of those transactions are entirely online, so think about things like ticket exchanges for concerts, and those online exchanges carry cyber and financial risks. Other transactions might start online, but then they'll move into in-person exchanges, for example at private homes, car parks, or even parks, where the lack of visibility and security really exposes people to the risk of theft or physical harm. So at home in WA ScamNet reports that online marketplaces account for the highest number of scam victims in WA. And when you look at our state as well as nationally, there have been many documented incidences where online marketplace meetups have then resulted in serious assault and robbery, both during the transaction or afterwards, given that the transaction provides an opportunity for thieves to scope out the venue and come back later. So in response to those incidences, police have advised residents to avoid meeting at private homes to do online marketplace exchanges, and to instead use busy public locations. So the purpose of the proposal tonight around the proposed safe trading site is to align with that advice and offer a safer option where people can still find items online, but then they can exchange the goods or money and goods in person at a dedicated, well-lit, busy public location that has CCTV footage as well. Having a dedicated site will help reduce the risk of assault and follow-up robbery, but also things like non-payment scams, pressure at the door, last-minute item swaps, and the sale of stolen goods. So it certainly won't stop every kind of scam or every kind of threat, but once people are meeting in public in a well-lit place with CCTV, it becomes much harder for scams, intimidation, and theft to occur. In Victoria, safer exchange sites have been permanently established at 35 police stations now following a successful trial. And that trial found that there was a decrease in thefts and robberies linked to online sales, along with strong community uptake of those sites. So just to be clear, in Victoria, those sites, they're not staffed by police, but they're outside police stations and provide clearly signed, well-lit CCTV covered locations for buyers and sellers. WA Police has confirmed that there's no current plan for a statewide rollout of these sites here, so now there's space instead for local governments to lead. The City of Stirling commenced a 12-month trial in May following a motion by Councillor Suzanne Migdale. The Beaufort Street site arising from that motion includes CCTV, it includes seating, it's close to public transport, parking and public toilets, and it was developed in conjunction with some advice from WA Police. Its establishment costs were estimated at $3,000, and it is really supported by a very strong public communications suite of materials excuse me, on risk awareness and how to use the site safely. Early feedback from that trial is really positive, and it was anticipated that the uptake of that site would be high among women, but community uptake has been strong across the board. So turning to the motion in front of us tonight, that motion doesn't ask for a final decision, but what it does is it asks for a recommended implementation model in future covering location, infrastructure, communications and cost, and that will allow us to make a properly informed decision at a later date. So I wanted to thank administration for the support of the motion, noting the need to avoid duplication with the Stirling site, which I absolutely agree with. I think my time might be wrapping up, so I'll leave it there, but grateful for your consideration of this motion and happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Warner.
Thank you, Chair. Follow that. I'm just really sorry that something like this would need to be implemented. I'm really sorry in the human race, basically, but it does. And I really support us exploring this and seeing what we can do to make things safer. The thought of inviting strangers to your house and giving them an opportunity to see your vulnerabilities is not a great idea, basically. So anything that we can do to support any changes here, which also supports our circular economy of reusing, repurposing. So I think it's a win-win all round, and I thank Councillor Wolf for bringing this up.
Does anyone else wish to speak on this? Councillor Whedon.
I would just like to thank Councillor Wolf for bringing this motion to Council. I think it's really important that we look ahead at what the new world actually is expecting of public facilities and how we adapt to an ever-changing environment. I think it's great.
Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Mayor Zaman. I certainly support the intent, and thank you, Councillor Wolf, for bringing this forward. I think it is really important that we do all that we can to support the share, exchange and trade economy. I certainly make sure that I'm not home alone when you do stuff through Facebook Marketplace. It is a big thing, and it would be great to be able to walk to somewhere local to know that it is a bit safer to exchange or trade goods. I am particularly, as this, if this was to progress, particularly keen for the results of the Victorian trial and the lessons from Stirling, and see how we can implement those. And I'm also really keen to understand the implications of the CCTV component of it. It will certainly give people a great deal of safety to know that that would be there, but I just think some other members of our community would be interested to understand of the implications of having CCTV in particular sites where it isn't now. So that's something I'll be looking for as we move forward, but overall I'm very supportive of the intent to go forward. Thank you.
Councillor Castle.
Thank you. Look, just quickly, I really strongly support this, and I just want to share a personal story. I sold some furniture on Facebook Marketplace a number of months ago, and the buyer of that piece of furniture was a victim of what could have potentially been quite a serious domestic violence incident right outside my home. My willingness to intervene was directly influenced by the fact it happened outside my home. I offered support to the victim. I tried to ensure that she was supported, but I was keenly aware that if I inserted myself into that position, that person knew where I lived. And I think this is a really important factor and opportunity that we can provide to people to protect both those victims. Obviously that's a whole separate issue, but also to help people feel safe about inviting people to purchase their goods, to engage in this trade with them.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Well, I wish to speak in support of this. I think it's a very good idea. I think it's quite timely. I think that if we're looking at doing this, it'd be really useful to have it up towards the Leederville, Mount Hawthorn side of Vincent, so that because now that I know that the Beaufort Street one is available, that's easily accessible to people who are down towards Perth and Highgate. So I look forward to seeing what are the best options, and I just think if it's something that we can do as a council to just add that little extra bit of safety for people, then I think that's a good thing. It's very, very minimal cost. Okay, so Councillor Wolf, do you want to say anything in conclusion?
Thank you, I would. Firstly, thank you very much for all the supportive comments in the chamber tonight. I really appreciate that. But I did just want to pick up on a couple of additional comments that were made. Firstly, in terms of the location, without preempting a decision of council or any further work to be done, I did engage with some residents from Mount Hawthorn and Leederville, picking up exactly on Mesamon's point around the location and trying to make it a little bit different from the location in the east of the Stirling site. And some of that early feedback was quite interesting. Mount Hawthorn residents said that they did feel some protection from the porches, mostly on their residential homes, whereas what Leederville residents were saying to me was the fact that a lot of them were in apartments. They felt like it was an additional level of intrusion having somebody come all the way in directly to their apartment. But what they also said was that apartment living was a real blocker to them participating in their local Buy Nothing group. And having a dedicated site for trading and exchange would allow them to participate and exchange goods that way. So there wouldn't just be the safety benefit, but also that community and waste avoidance as well. In terms of pulling together the results of the Victorian and Stirling trials, I think the Victorian trial has now concluded, but it would be good to bring that in, as well as staying in touch with Stirling as their trial continues through to next May. I believe, and I might be corrected on this, but I believe what Stirling had done was they picked a site where there was already CCTV in that location, so that might be something that's considered in any further work coming out of tonight as well.
Okay, so now I'll put the proposal. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. So now we move on to 17.1, which is a confidential item, and that's waste to energy options. But I'm going to call for a mover and seconder for a vote to go behind closed doors. So that's moved Councillor Castle. Do I have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Greer. All those in favour? Okay, carried unanimously. Okay, so what we're going to do is now go behind closed doors to discuss this item, and the live stream will be paused and the gallery vacated. So can I just confirm when the live stream has that the live stream has been resumed? Okay, so the welcome back, the recommendation which was decided behind closed doors was that council endorses the city exercising its Mindarie Regional Council exemption from disposal of all or part of its waste. 2, approves the CEO providing 12 months notice to the Mindarie Regional Council of the city's intent to exercise its exemption, subject to an agreement not being achieved with a preferred tenderer and all member councils for a waste energy contract within the exemption notification period. And 3, approves the CEO to undertake a procurement process for disposal of its residual waste to a waste energy facility should the exemption come into effect. Okay, so there being no further business to conduct, I thank everyone who is in attendance and on the live stream, and I close the meeting at 1 minute past 8. Thank you. You can see